Now, coming back to the challenges with the majority of these companies, I know you've signed up five companies. Five. One of them I think is Svevo, which I think is a brilliant example of the unordinary company. What would you say? They're not typical at all. Their managing director for the company, he's not typical Swedish at all. But I think they're going to be very successful in the market. But that would not be your typical type of company you would find going to Sweden, seeking this out. They also have Andre Heinz as co-investor in their company in Sweden. The majority of these companies, 90% of the Swedish green technology companies has less than 10 employees. That's the typical company. Very few, if any, have any type of international experience of working and selling on the global market. They typically have sold either in Sweden or in the Nordics. The Swedish mentality to entrepreneurs is sort of like, don't get too cocky, don't go overboard here. First you succeed in Sweden, then you go to Norway, then you go to Finland, then you go to Denmark, then you might go to Germany. But that process could take 10 years. So a lot of them hasn't gone anywhere. I actually came across one of our supplies, kind of interesting though. They have no customers in Sweden. They have 20 in Japan. And I asked them, why don't you have any customers in Sweden? And they said, well, we just never called on any. But you called on customers in Japan. Well, they called on us and we sold them. So that's very, very much engineering mind of these companies. The other challenge you will find with these type of companies are that they're very product-centric. They'll go out and preach their product, but they don't really have a clue necessarily what the customer wants to buy. And I think coming back to that point, what the customer want to buy, I think you will find in the green technology space that the customers doesn't necessarily want to buy an individual product. If you go to Atlanta Airport, which there actually is such a project, and say, do you want to buy solar panels? Atlanta Airport is probably going to say no. But if you ask them, do you want to buy solar energy? You might do that. It could be a good deal. And that's the type, the customers want to buy a utility rather than a product in many cases. And I think the IT industry serves as a good example to the customers paid a lot of, in the 1980s, 1990s, the customer was buying one-off products. And the customer took all the costs to integrate them into their environment, and they can never control it. Now you're seeing in the IT industry more of a SaaS solution. If you're familiar with that, like Salesforce, you pay for an application or a solution. You don't run it in your house. You buy the service. That's it. And that's what you will see, I think, very much also in the green technology space. I can give you another example of that. I know companies that has solicited Purdue up in Maryland to offer to burn their chicken waste and turn it into chicken energy. Now, if you go to the CFO of Purdue and say, do you want to buy this product from me? He's probably going to say no, because they can dump it on the Eastern Shore for barely nothing today. And all you're going to do is increase his capex. Now, if you go there and said, can I buy your chicken waste? But you in return have to promise that you'll buy the energy that I'll create from burning it and sell that back to you. Now that's a whole different thing, because then you're talking a net income discussion rather than a capex. And I think this is the way the industry is going to play out intensely here in the US. And I come across a lot of financiers here in the US, private money that are focused on financing waste to energy solutions. But these companies in Sweden, they're not in this game of doing project financing, annuity contracts. They want to ship their product. Another thing you will find is a lot of these products are very niche. They'll do just one thing. Yet the customer, to make the business case, and I think that's very often why it's failed in the US. Customers, they'll find the product, they picked it up, try to do an ROI on it, doesn't work. Because if you go back to Sweden and you look at and you try to figure out where is the green technology sitting, and you want to go find the holy grail, and typical politicians do this. They want to find this one thing that solves everything. Now, what you see is you won't really find anything, because it's part of everything we do. So the green technology is integrated across the whole society, and the way that it makes it works is the integrated value of these various components. So that's also what we want to do when we engage with customer here in this market. Is we look at individual products, and then we look, what else could you do? Still do one deal with the customer, but by adding 3, 4, maybe 5 products, then you got the ROI, which actually makes the case compelling to the customer. And then you must also recognize that the challenge you might have may come across as a geography thing is that a lot of these companies have decided to focus elsewhere. They might do international expansion with, one, I told you they're very small companies. 2, there was a perception for a while that they're pulling down the Hollywood sign, and I think they actually did that right now, but to clean it. But that the U.S. is no longer a market. Let's go to China, let's go to India, let's go to the BRIC countries. Let's not go to the U.S. They're just focused on their economy, and I know that's not correct, because the U.S. is still 20% of the global GDP, and it's going to be that probably far bigger than China up until 2025. Anyway, but there's this mental focus that we might go to China instead. So that's also something you must take into consideration when looking at these companies. Why don't they want to go into the U.S.? Why not now? And I think, I don't know what the response you had right now, but I think you really need to work with these companies to get the U.S. as a priority on their list. And I would tell these companies, don't go to China. Whatever you do, don't go to China. Because the Chinese will take your product, they'll copy it, and they'll kick you out. And over time,